It is now at past, so welcome to this meeting of the Badenoch and Strathspey Area Committee. The standard Teams protocols will apply. There are no apologies for absence since all four of us are here. And item 2, are there any declarations of interest? Pippa.
I have financial interest to declare in items 3 as a member of the Cairngorms National Park Authority Board, and also in item 6 as a council house tenant, but I believe there's a dispensation that means I can stay and participate in any discussion. Thank you. No
other declarations, members? Good. Item 3 on the agenda is the Cairngorms National Park Authority consultation on the National Park Partnership Plan. So I'd like to welcome Gavin Miles today from the CNPA, and we hope to have the Chief Executive, Grant Moyer, with us sometime later in the proceedings, depending if you can get in by clockwork, which I think is what you use at COP these days. So over to you, Gavin.
Thank you very much. I'll just start sharing my screen and hopefully it will come up in a moment. Now, can you see a
yes, we can.
Great. I will start that off then. Great. So, yeah, this is about the National Park Partnership Plan. We are consulting now on the next plan for the next 5 years. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of a background here on why we're doing it and also what the Park Authority does. I appreciate for some of you it'll be teaching you to suck eggs or something, but I'll go over it again anyway. So we're starting off, what does the Park Authority do? Because it is quite important when we're talking about the National Park Partnership Plan. So Park Authority is required to set the priorities and works in partnership with organisations, businesses and other individuals. We're securing funding and delivering activity to meet the 4 aims of the National Park. Again, most of the time actually with partners such as Highland Council. We don't duplicate the work of other organisations, so we try to add value to the work that people like Highland Council or other local authorities do and the other public agencies, as well as private sector and voluntary sector. As you know, there are 4 aims of the National Park: conserving and enhancing natural and cultural heritage, promoting sustainable use of natural resources, promoting understanding and enjoyment of the special qualities of the National Park by the public, and promoting the sustainable economic and social development of its communities. So we have a current National Park Partnership Plan, which has been running for the past 5 years. It will end in 2022. So we're now starting to look at the next plan for the period 22 to 2027. We're consulting on the draft plan just now, and then the process works in that we then consult on this plan, and then that plan and all the comments and a revised version are sent to Scottish Government, and then ministers at Scottish Government approve the National Park Partnership Plan. It becomes their policy for the National Park. So the consultation is available online. Hopefully you've seen some information about it already. There's a website, a sort of a set-aside website that covers it, and there's also a PDF if people want to download it as a document as well. So again, this is just a sort of a indication of the timeline for it. We actually started the process in the summer of this year. So we undertook some, I suppose, light consultation and engagement with people, asking people about what they thought the priorities and what the issues were to be addressed in the National Park over the next 5 years. We're now at the point of consulting formally. So we've taken those comments and used them to help inform the draft plan. We're consulting until the 17th of December. We then have to collate all the responses, analyse them, think about changes, have more discussions with partners if there are significant changes needed, and then we report that to the board, who then agree to send it off to Scottish ministers, and then we hope that ministers will approve the plan and it will be adopted by the National Park board in the summer of next year. So we've got 3 themes within it. First one, nature, covering all the things that National Park is famous for in terms of nature and land management and the way that we use land. This area is, I suppose, more controversial than at any time in the past, because obviously topically with climate change and COP happening. Climate change is affecting the national park, it's affecting nature, it's affecting the way that we need to manage land in order to store carbon and things like that, as well as the way that species and the habitats that we're famous for are coping with that. So there's a lot there, and that significantly affects a lot of people who work on the land as well. One on people, which is particularly about the communities of the national park and how we ensure that they remain healthy, they have jobs, they have good housing, and they continue to thrive. And we have a theme on place, which is a bit more around the physical side of things and how we move around our places, for example, with active travel, but also public transport and things like the A9 upgrade or the upgrade of the Highland main line, and the quality of the places that we live in. It's obviously the National Park Partnership Plan can actually cover just about anything in the national park, so it's fairly all-encompassing. Now, that inevitably there has to be a degree of focusing on the most important issues, but as you can see from that range of topics there, pretty much anything that anyone thinks is relevant to the national park is relevant to the National Park Partnership Plan. It may not be the National Park Authority who are the lead body who deal with those issues. It might be a local authority or another public agency or the private sector, or even the voluntary sector, but they're all very important in the national park and can be covered by the National Park Partnership Plan. And importantly, as you all realise, most of them are actually interconnected with each other. So it's not as if one sits on its own. They all have links to other topics, therefore other organisations. So that's why it's very important that things are planned in a way that gets bodies to join together and make the most of their resources. These are just some of the comments that we got in the summer from the light consultation that we did. And I think if you read them, you probably won't be surprised that they reflect a range of the kinds of views that you would expect to hear as councillors as well around things in the national park. So we're looking to hear from everybody who wants to say anything about the national park. We're trying to get as many people as possible to engage in this process this time. I appreciate that for some people it'll be a very fleeting glimpse and they may not have a lot to say. For other people, they'll want to tell us a lot and write a lot about the consultation, but it's very important that people feel that they can talk about it and they can give us their views. Now, I don't know if this will work. This is a short video that I'll try and play. I suspect it won't work, in which case we'll just brush over it. I've pressed play, but just confirm if you can see or hear anything.
We can certainly see it, Gavin, but there's no sound at the moment.
Right. I think it's probably best if I just fast forward that, because although it's very pretty, the words are the powerful thing about it as they go with the images.
Maybe you could send it to us, Gavin, if that's possible.
Yes. If I just move on. Sorry, just give me a moment. I'm just sorting out the presentation. Lorraine has a copy of the presentation, so it will be possible for Lorraine to send on the link to that video, which is on YouTube anyway.
Lorraine, can you send that to all members after the meeting, please?
Yes, Chair, will do.
So the point about that video, which is very pretty images and people talking about their experience of the national park and the challenges coming in the future, and how they basically want to see the national park as a place where nature and communities thrive together. So I suppose it's inspirational and it's thought-provoking as well. And it sums up the things that the National Park Partnership Plan is trying to do. So we've got a website at cairngorms.co.uk, your view. It's worth going and having a look at that. As I said, on that site, you can look at the way that the objectives under each of those three themes are set out, the sorts of targets that we're looking to achieve over the 5 years or longer. And we've got specific questions on those. And then there's also a section on the actions for the next 5 years, including obviously actions that involve Highland Council as well as other partners in the national park. And as I said, if you want to download a PDF, there is a PDF there too that you can download, or you can use the more interactive website to look at it. And please do encourage other people to respond to it as well, because there are many of the issues are things which people are interested in. We've tried as far as possible to break it down into simple and bite-sized chunks in order to make it easy for people to engage with it. But inevitably, this is a plan for 5 years covering lots of different issues. It is quite complicated at times, so sometimes people need a bit of help and pointing in the right direction for the kinds of issues that are important to them. So that's the end of the presentation. Shall I stop sharing my screen now?
Yes, if you could please, that would be good.
Has that stopped now?
Yeah, that's us. Gavin, I have to be honest, from a personal point of view, I have to say that the partnership working between the Highland Council and the National Park Authority has vastly improved in recent years. And I mean vastly. It's made a tremendous difference to the delivery of local services. And I would hope that the National Park feel the same way, but certainly from the Council's point of view, I think it's working particularly well now. Much better than it was in the past. So members, do you have any questions for Gavin or Murray? And in case you didn't know who Murray is, he's the follically challenged person in the bottom right hand of my screen. So Muriel.
Gavin, thank you for the presentation. Like all colleagues, I look forward to the evaluation of the responses. Do we, or do you correlate the number of responses from locals and a breakdown between locals and visitors to the park? Because some of our visitors certainly know how to find members and communicate with members and certainly get their points across quite well. But I'm just don't want us to lose out with that localism thing. And the second question I've got is, I think one or two of you, I saw some images from COP26. What things are you learning from COP26 that we can use as initiatives in the national park?
Gavin or Murray?
Yeah, shall I start on the consultation point? So I'll answer this one, and then Murray may want to add to it. I think on the consultation side, I suppose there's a difference in the sort of issues that those different communities often comment on, and the nature of their comments becomes quite apparent. So for residents who are commenting on local issues, those local issues, they will tend to have I suppose a depth of understanding that comes out in the responses that they make, whereas people who have a very cursory interest in the national park may say things which are broader and more sweeping. Now, that's true of every consultation in a sense, and it's always the responsibility of the decision maker, in this case the board, to decide what weight to give to different sorts of responses. The board are obviously a very broad cross-section of different representatives, but they certainly understand the difference between, I suppose, national views that are informed by press and emotion and local views which are informed by both those, but also living here and working here and the challenges of being here, and they're very aware of the difference. I don't think there's not a clear way of giving them a weighting, and there's no way of I suppose giving a weight based on the numbers, because there are obviously, hypothetically, there could be many more responses from people outside the national park than within the national park. It's not so much the quantity, but the quality of responses which matters, and how clearly they think about the issues and address them. And we're obviously trying to balance different points of views and find a sensible way forward that benefits particularly the local communities, but also provides a place that people want to come and visit as well. On the COP26 question, I think it's a little bit early to say what we've taken from that yet. However, I would say that, as an example, in the national park, we have some of the biggest areas of degraded peatland in Scotland, and we and others are already looking at how some of those areas of peatland are managed to reduce the carbon emissions from them, and also to make sure they store as much as possible. And similarly, in terms of the work that's been going on woodland expansion, looking at where that can work well and where that adds value. All those changes, though, clearly do have an impact on people as well. And I think the bit that may come out most from COP and is a very important thing is the sense of a fair way of transitioning from one way of living and working into another that takes people and communities with them too.
Yeah, and Chair, if I can just briefly add to all of that. Good morning, everybody. Apologies, I was joining you a few minutes late. I was coming from another meeting. I think you know that our Chief Executive, Grant Moyer, is actually down at the COP26 today, presenting on the snow-related research, which is very relevant to all of us. We generally feel that all of the energy and enthusiasm that there is around the COP conference in Scotland is quite timely for the consultation on the partnership plan. The pre-consultation work we did just before this consultation was launched was highlighting that I think the figure was around about 90% of the respondents to that work felt it was important or very important that in the park we were collectively addressing both the climate challenge and also the biodiversity challenge in parallel. We've certainly found from the discussions that we have had through the COP process that people feel that the park plan is a good start. Obviously it could be improved, and the key thing is that we're moving forward collectively to make sure it's delivered over the next few years. Just yesterday we had the economic steering group for the park meeting, which is chaired by Deirdre Faulkner, one of our directly elected members. We had about 20 participants at that meeting, including Michelle Hardy from Andy McCann's team in Highland Council, and we had a really positive discussion about the park plan. We focused in on the skills and training agenda in a discussion that was led by Skills Development Scotland, and certainly the opportunities for new types of employment and this just transition that Gavin talked about were highlighted very strongly, and quite a few good actions developed. So happy to say more if need be.
I'm hoping, Murray, that when you get really into the depths of the responses you get from people, that many people will mention the word housing. And there's no point looking at employability if it doesn't go hand in hand with housing. There's no point creating jobs if you can't provide places for people to live. And by places for people to live, I mean places for people to live that they can afford. At the moment, there is a real strong pressure on Badenoch and Strathspey in particular on affordable housing, and affordable housing that people can afford to live in this area and actually afford to work. There's no point producing £1 million houses if you can't go to a restaurant because it's shut for the night because you can't find any staff. So I think that's probably one of the most important things that we'll be able to do. And as far as biodiversity is concerned, I was delighted to see the pine hoverfly receiving such gigantic publicity for such a critically endangered species. So bear in mind, I'm the champion for the pine hoverfly. So, members, are there any further questions for Murray or Gavin? You're getting off light today, guys. They're all shy today. So really, I'm sorry Grant didn't manage, but I'm sure we'll have discussions with Grant. And I would encourage members to encourage everyone they know to respond to the partnership plan, because it's really important. It doesn't matter if you've got any association with the National Park Board or not. It's just really important. So thanks very much, guys, and enjoy the rest of your day. You're welcome to stay if you've got insomnia, but you know, you're welcome. Cheers.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thanks very much.
Members, next item on the agenda is the police performance report. I don't know if Vince is here.
Chair, I'll come in at that point. I spoke to Chief Inspector Jenny Valentine this morning, and Vince was actually, Inspector Tooth was actually due to be on a day off today. He is going to try and join us, so I suggest that we move on further on the agenda and we can take items as they arise, if that's okay with the committee members.
Yeah, quite happy to do that, Liz. We'll delay the police report to whenever Inspector Tough can arrive. So move now to item 5, which is community asset transfer, Burnfield public toilets. And is Glenn McIntosh here?
We don't seem to have Ewan with us at the moment,
Oh,
Chair.
sorry.
So if that is a report I can speak to, I'm quite happy to speak to that because I've been working on that jointly with Ewan.
Carry on, Liz.
Members, you have before you the community asset transfer request for the Burnfield public toilets and a small area of car parking in Granton. I think right at the very beginning of the report, it's worth clarifying that this is simply an area immediately adjacent to the toilet block itself to enable motorhome disposal of cassettes, and that will be part of the design that's being worked through for the facility when it comes online. There has been a lot of work done by the Granton Initiative. It's been evaluated by the team at Highland Council, and in particularly Ewan McIntosh has done a fair bit of work on this. It is a strong application. It's a very strong community-led application, and the recommendation is that this community asset transfer is approved. There are some points to note that there is a right of preemption to Seafield Estate, and the council's ability to sell is conditional on Seafield Estate not taking up the preemption. Early indications are that this is not going to be an issue. Seafield Estates are very supportive of this project and indeed have looked to support it if they can in terms of storage of items for the group, which they've done at the moment with a unit off-site. The toilets should remain available for use as a public convenience, and this is an existing burden on the legal title for the property, and this has been established by our legal team. Highland Council reserves rights for drainage inspection and repair, and there's already been dialogue with Granton Initiative for this. The Granton Initiative are aware that they are to cover all reasonably incurred property and legal costs associated with the transfer process, both the council and its own. And should Granton Initiative seek to sell the property in the future, Highland Council reserves the right of preemption for market value at the time of the event. And the catch-all at the end of the conditions are any other terms to be agreed by the Executive Chief Officer, Communities in Place, in consultation with the Area Committee Chair. So if members have any questions in the report in particular, I'm very happy to take them and do my best to answer them. And if not, I can pick up points and take them back to you and for further response.
Liz, I've got a question which involves recommendations 2 and recommendation 5. Recommendation: the toilets are to remain available for use as a public convenience. Does that still apply should Granton Initiative decide in the future to sell the property?
As far as I'm aware, Chair, the title does state clearly that this was provision for public convenience, and that has been clarified by our legal team. So I do not see that this would revert, and that's something that we can have clarified and come back to the members on. So we will take a note to clarify that further. But it is my understanding, according to the title, that this land was provided for the provision of public toilets.
Well, in that case, I fully support the application for us giving it to Grant Initiative for £1. And before I take Muriel in, Grant, I'm sorry we missed you. Your guys have gone. They did the presentation and they're gone. So I'm sure you're enjoying COP. So we'll let you go back to it. Cheers.
Oh, thank you very much, Bill. Sorry, much appreciated. I'm glad Gav was able to do that.
No problem. Cheers.
Cheers. Bye.
Muriel.
Thank you, Convener. That was the question I was going to ask, was exactly what Councillor Robin had said. And with that answer, I'm happy. Obviously the legals. I would also like to thank the team because these things are not easy. The team that have pulled all this together, to get the work done. I think it's important. And remember, we're just in the back of COVID as well, so trying to get all the legals and get all the paperwork and appease every party that's involved. So well done to everybody, and I look forward to this going through further that check. Thank you.
John.
Thank you. It's a question of the water supply. If anything happens to the water supply, whose responsibility is it? Is it the Burnfield people or is it ours?
I'm not legally trained, but I'm guessing that if it's inside the building, it's their problem. And if it's outside the building, it will be Scottish Water.
Right, okay.
Although they may, obviously they have access across our property. But that's a legal thing that we would need to get clarified for you, John. I don't believe that we're capable of answering that this morning. I'm guessing, Liz.
I'm happy to come in on that for Councillor Bruce. Councillor Bruce, this will be an asset transfer, so therefore the asset will transfer whole and total to Granton Initiative. Therefore, they will be responsible for utilities, power, water, etc. So I would say confidently that responsibility for that will lie with Granton Initiative. However, I would say, picking up on Councillor Coburn's point and in response to your own points, we will continue to work in partnership with Granton Initiative on this particular asset transfer, because there are involvements that will happen with the car parking adjacent. So we are looking forward to very much a strong community-led approach and engagement throughout with Highland Council, and we'll report back further to members on this initiative, but it's a welcome development for Granton and Spey and Granton Initiative in taking this forward.
I think John's point maybe needs to be expanded a wee bit, because bearing in mind that the toilets are surrounded by Highland Council property. So if there is a problem with the water supply within the Highland Council property, that I don't think is something that maybe we're talking about. So.
Okay, I'll undertake to provide those clarifications for Councillor Bruce, and I can take those comments back to Councillor Bruce and the members.
You okay with that, John?
Yeah, thank you.
Pippa.
It's just an entirely light and frothy comment to say that some of the best toilets that I've been in around Scotland have been community endeavours, and I'm absolutely delighted to see that Granton have been able to secure this property and take their aspirations forward for further toilet provision in Granton. I think it's a real mark of achievement for them, and I'm very impressed. I look forward to trying them out one day.
Well, the one thing, Pippa, is you would not want to have tried them out as they were, because I can honestly tell you that they were not something to be proud of, and that the changes that Granton Initiative are going to make have got to be better than they were before. So, members, can we agree the recommendations 1 to 6 and wish Granton Initiative all the luck in the world with running the new public toilets? But maybe sometimes in the near future, we need to discuss the future of the other set of toilets. So can we agree that, please?
Agreed.
Okay. Item 6 on the agenda is the housing performance report, and David Wood is with us to go through the report. David.
Thank you, Chair. Morning, members. Hope you're all well. Today, I'm pleased to present the housing performance report for Q2. That period covers July to September 2021. I'd like to draw your attention to the relevant points, starting with emergency repairs. There's a slight increase in the time taken to complete emergency repairs compared to the previous quarter, from 6.5 hours up to 6.8 hours, however, still within the target time of 14. Non-emergency repairs, again, a slight increase in the time taken to complete non-emergency repairs. Tradesmen continue to work their way through the backlog created during COVID, and they report that they're addressing this quite well now. However, the figure of 7.4 days is still within the target time of 8 days and is well within the Highland average of 12.4 days. Relet times have greatly improved since Q1. The figures back within the 35-day target, now standing at 31.38 days. The team have continued to prioritise repairs and allocations, and I think this is reflecting in the performance figures. Moving on to rent arrears. Rent arrears have increased slightly since Q1, but still compare favourably with the same quarter of last year. The increase, however, does appear to be a Highland-wide trend for this quarter. If we move on to homelessness, 15 presentations in this quarter. This is consistent and compares to figures for the same quarter in previous years. So it appears that the kind of fluctuation that COVID brought about seems to have settled now. If we look at Appendix 1, I'm absolutely delighted to report there are no red or amber indicators. And that concludes the report, so I'm happy to take any questions. Sorry, Councillor Lovin, you're muted.
Did I see your hand up for a second or no?
I did, yes, sorry, my hand is up, if that's okay. David, as ever, thank you for the detail of your report. How are we in the area placed with the capacity demand for tenants that are in accommodation that is too small for them? There seems to be a concern that we just don't have that and we're unable to match that. How can we address that, and what are the numbers? Do you have a feel for the numbers?
Thank you for that, Councillor Coburn. I've not got exact numbers with me today, but in answer to your question, it does present a problem. There are many families who are existing tenants who are looking for larger properties as their family has expanded, and it's very, very difficult. It's one of the main challenges we face. I think there's a level of frustration from the whole team that when new developments are made, we always request larger properties, but of course, the developers look at the footprint and work out exactly what they can best use that area for. And invariably, we never get as many large properties as we want. So you're absolutely correct. It's a real issue for the area, and one we continually try to address. But of course, the lack of suitable accommodation and suitably sized accommodation makes it very, very difficult for the staff to deal with everyone. So in real terms, we only deal with the top end and the most needy in those situations, simply because of the turnover of stock.
I think as well, David, we don't have that many houses. If you look at the, I suppose, the number of completions of new tenants going into houses, it's not a large number. So we don't have a large number of houses in the first place, thanks to a certain government decision many, many years ago, predominantly, I suppose. But really, in general, I think the report's really good. You don't beat yourself up within a few days of certain targets. I think it's a really good performance, and the fact that in Appendix 1 everything is green means that you're doing a really good job, and I think the staff deserve to be complimented. So, but it's a difficult time. Housing is the main issue in Badenoch and Strathspey at the moment, and it's something we really need to concentrate on. And if we could produce you an extra 100 council houses tomorrow, then we would do. And I keep hearing from people that we can't build our way out of this problem. Well, actually, it's the only thing we can do is try and build our way out of the problem. Muriel.
Thank you for allowing me back in, Convener. I think it's important that we, as members, are seen to support you as well, and building, I think we can build our way out, but it's the right size of house. I think the staff need support. They can't magic the size of houses that are necessarily needed, and I think we need to work and push our builders to make sure, irrespective of whether they think the profit in their footprint, we need to build the right type of accommodation, working with the expertise in your department as well. So thank you for that and the clarity, and I hope that we as a team can work with that. Thank you, David, and good luck in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Coburn. If I could just respond to the point you make there in terms of supporting the team. I certainly feed back everything you say to them. I think it's fair to say they support them as best you can, and they really do appreciate that support and they recognise it. So on behalf of the Badenoch housing team, thank you for the support as members that you give us. It is really appreciated.
This will be your last report, I would imagine, David, is it not?
It may well be, Councillor Lobbin, it may well be, but never say never. I've started in Lochaber as it stands, but because of the handover and my successor still being involved with Inverness, you've needed to endure my dulcet tones again today, I'm afraid. So you never know, you may hear them again in the future.
Well, my sincere condolences for having to move to Lochaber. So.
I couldn't possibly comment on that.
David, thanks very much. It's a good report. Liz.
I've had a message from Inspector 2. He's having real difficulties connecting through. He's finding it very frustrating. He apologises. He does not like being in the position where he isn't in attendance at committee for his report. He is going to try again, and hopefully if we see him popping up, we can move to him and take his item. So just a message from Vince on that.
No problem, David, and congratulations and the best of luck with your new position. So thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Item 7, members, is the Area Roads Programme, and I'm sure lurking around in the background somewhere is Richard Porteous. Good afternoon, or good morning, Richard, sorry.
Morning, Chair, members, Ward Manager. Excuse me, I've got a slightly croaky throat this morning. So yes, thank you. This is this report is our opportunity to update members on how we got on with this year's roads programme, which was originally agreed back in May at Badenoch and Strathspey Area Committee on the 25th. So the focus was on our capital budget, which was £310,000. Did I say that correctly? £765,000 and £310,000. So £750,000, and that was roughly double what we'd had the previous year. So that was a very welcome increase. Subsequent to that committee at Highland Council on the 24th of June, additional funds were agreed for roads, and that Highland Council report was then updated at the Economy and Infrastructure Committee report on the 1st of September. And that detailed how the additional £9 million would be planned to be spent. So that additional money was very welcome. A portion of that £9 million was allocated towards replacement of specialist roads plant and vehicles across the Highlands. Again, very welcome in terms of helping us with service delivery. And there's a sort of Highland-wide focus on pothole repairs, and so that will come in handy for that. So the remainder, which was 6.5 million, by the time that was divvied up amongst the areas, it meant Badenoch and Strathspey would get an additional £186,000. So that is very welcome as well. In addition to that, if I skip from section 4 of the report to section 7, we were also allocated some money for strategic road schemes, and that amounted to roughly £280,000 for Badenoch and Strathspey. That was at the committee on the 5th of May, which was another Environment and Infrastructure Committee. So again, that was very welcome additional funds. And so in total for this year available, that brought us up to roughly £1 million. So Appendix 1 of this report basically presents the same table that we agreed back in May and reports on the progress with that. In simple terms, under the remarks column on the right hand side, the schemes are listed as either complete or ongoing or imminent, for example. So I'm pleased to say that most of the items on there are complete, which represents, as I said, I think we've managed to spend £750,000, which represents 3/4 of the monies that we had available this year, and is double what we had available. We've spent double what was available last year. So first of all, any monies unspent will be rolled over to next year. And secondly, I would like to congratulate my team for managing to achieve that, because it has presented significant challenges, additional workload for the team. So they've done well in managing to achieve that. And there have been challenges this year in terms of, not least due to COVID, but also in terms of contractor availability, which has been affected by COVID, but has also been affected by the fact that there's been significant trunk road money available this year too. So only by good communication and good forward planning and managing to secure a window for our own work amongst the trunk road work have we been managed to pin down contractors and actually get work done. So that's been good. And there have been other pressures this year which members will know about, such as visitor infrastructure and visitor management project work. So all of these things have put considerable demands on officer time, and yet we have managed to deliver. So I'm quite proud of the team for that. Having said that, excuse me, we've still only managed to spend 3/4 of what was available. So in terms of the roads management team, that is a focus going forward. So work is ongoing at the moment to develop, our officer resource in terms of engineering oversight and bolstering teams appropriately where we can, and putting in the right structure to try and maximise our capital spend in future years, so that opportunities are not lost from one year to the next. So that if we are given additional funds, then we're able to spend it all. That would be the ideal scenario. It's easier said than done, as for the reasons that I've mentioned, but that is obviously the aim, and we're going to be working hard as a management team to meet those ends as we go forward. I'm just wondering, looking ahead to next year, next year's programme will be brought to committee in the new year, in the first round of committees, and obviously winter takes its toll on the network, and that is the reason for the timing. However, we will be trying to forward plan with lists of as many works as possible in that regard. And so we'll be looking at the usual programme for surface dressing and road resurfacing, and other aspects such as structural drainage works, drainage being so fundamental to maintaining the condition of the network, keeping water off the road to avoid the freeze-thaw action through the winter, and the compression from vehicles forcing water into cracks during the rest of the year. And there may be other opportunities too, which we're always working on in the background, and which was mentioned in the spring, and that's where we can get opportunities for drawing in money from other sources, particularly the Scottish Timber Transport Scheme we've discussed a fair bit, and that is something we're still working on in the background. So that brings me really to the end of all I was going to say, but invite questions to members and see if I can answer those for you.
There's no doubt about it, Richard. Roads cost money, but I think we've got a... Richard, you need to put your mic on, that's better. Richard, roads cost money, and there's no doubt about it. But the big thing is, it's not just about money, it's about being able to spend that money. And I think you've done a remarkable job this year in being able to deliver the programme that you've delivered already. You know, every penny of road spend is important to us. And unless we continue to give you more money in the future, then there's every chance our roads will begin to deteriorate yet again. So whilst you may seem disappointed with the amount you've managed to deliver, I think it's absolutely remarkable what you've done this year. So all the staff deserve our support and compliments. Muriel.
Thank you. I'd just like to echo that it's great that the finances have been there to allow the staff to work at breakneck speed with some of the projects. Just a couple of things. We're coming into winter, or can we just make sure you get the support we get the messaging out of what we're covering, because every year we're getting, oh, my pavement or my route's not covered, and we discovered when we start investigating that it's not part of the Highland Council policy. I think we need to be on message and have clarity, and if that's shared with our ward manager, we can get that out to do that. I think I'm delighted to hear that you're still having the discussion with the Scottish Timber Transport. But why is it taking so long? It's not a criticism of you. Is that the organisation trying to not engage? And what support do you need to make sure that these conversations, because the number of wagons are, you know, and the damage they're doing to our wee roads and our wee bridges is all well documented. So I think it'd be nice to get that money back into the ward and into your team pocket soon.
Thanks, Chairman. Just to confirm that I've taken those points on board, particularly about the winter. And when it comes to STTS, yeah, it's been purely officer time and lack of opportunity to develop that project this year. There's two areas that we would focus on, I think, and one will be the Boat of Garton Sawmill Link Road, and possibly the B970 as well. So it'll be a question of getting the Scottish Timber Transport Scheme representative down into the area and trying to take those projects forward. Thank you.
That's good. Any other questions, members? Richard, thank you, and please pass on our thanks to your staff. And we look forward to you spending even more money next year.
Thanks very much. The only thing I didn't mention was structures, but that will be reported separately, and we're getting good oversight and involvement from the structures team, because there was a bit of extra money in that 6.5 million allocated for structures as well, for minor repairs, amounted to about 150,000 for extra for Badenoch and Strathspey, which was also welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard.
Cheers for now.
Cheers. Vince, thank you very much for really making the effort to come and join us. I really appreciate it. So we'll move back to the area police performance report, if you're still with us.
Yes, thank you. I'm not sure, is the audio coming through okay?
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
That's great. Okay, thank you. Yes, just really looking at the report, obviously it covers the period the 1st of April to the 30th of September this year. Probably just, you know, tying in with Richard's, so it's a report. If I turn to road safety and road crime initially, thankfully over the review period, there's been no fatalities on the roads over the review period, so very thankful for that. The next figure I'd look at is the number of persons detected for drink or drug driving. So it's dropped slightly, which is good news. Obviously, it's a fairly short review period, but hopefully that message is sort of getting through to some of the folk that, you know, have been taking the chance of taking drugs and then getting behind the wheel. So We're keen to increase the number of officers that are trained in the drug drive in wipes that we use. But I would say that we did manage to sort of target a couple of key nominals that we were after in the area. So, but we'll need to just keep using that as we go forward there. The number of people charged with speeding, it's gone up, you know, fairly notably, but it's still well below the usual figures for the area. But again, just the volume of traffic on the roads picked up just with the restrictions easing. So I think that's to be expected there for that. Next, going on to acquisitive crime. First thing to highlight there is the number of house break-ins have gone down quite notably from the previous figure of 7, which was about our average going back over the baseline periods. So it's down to 3 over the period. Certain nominals have moved away from the area, certain nominals have been arrested. So I think that's basically kept that figure suppressed at the moment. We're going into the winter period. There's obviously lots of expensive equipment in the area, quite remote properties, so we're going to have to be sort of vigilant with that, and we will be stepping up the anti-crime patrols in the area, just going into that winter period. Next figure is theft by shopliftings. I think, you know, they've gone up. The previous figure was 4. It's gone up to 16, so it's quite a jump, really, increase of 12. And that is above the normal figures that I think the area's experienced over the past 5 years or 3 years. I've asked our prevention and interventions officer just to do a review of those, just to see if we've got any particular premises that do get targeted, and again, just if there's any particular nominals that feature there. It's quite, from my own sort of reviewing the figures, it's quite a spread really in terms of we do have high value outdoor shops in the area, and people will travel into the area to target these. So I know that's been an issue, but again, there's obviously sort of theft of alcohol, etc., which can be kind of a common target for these offences. So, but we will do a review and we will see if we can actually support some of the premises and target certain sort of key nominals for those. So next thing really to look at is disorder offences, violence and disorder offences. Licensed premises checks are continuing to go up all the time, just as the pubs become busier. So that figure's in keeping with that on the report. There's been a good increase in the number of persons charged with possession of controlled drugs. Most of those are personal possession offences, and again, just as more people out and about at the weekends, and that's quite often when these offences come to the fore. Breach of the peace, disorder offences, there's an increase there, up to 19 offences, but it's still sort of in keeping with the sort of 5-year average figure. But I would say that basically we're finding the weekends just back to normal in terms of disorder and people being arrested, that sort of general pattern. I would say we're back to the sort of previous figures and that we've seen. So that's I say back to normal. Assault, again, there's been a slight increase there, but it is below the average figures that we've had. We do monitor if there's certain premises that are featuring on a regular basis. We do sort of monitor that, and we do try to do interaction with the licensees. But on the whole, we do find the licensees, they work with us, and we do try and address the issues at an early stage with them. So, and then the final figure really I'll just go over is the protecting the vulnerable people. Sexual offences, crimes, they've gone down over the period, which is really pleasing to see. But I would say recently, obviously, you know, there's been a number of offences I'm personally aware of, so I think that figure may well pick up again to that average sort of figures that we've seen historically in the area. But obviously the figures are just a snapshot. They don't cover every, you know, situation that you know the public are facing, but it just gives a general overview there. In terms of my general comments, I think for policing over that period, to be fair, it's just been very disrupted. Obviously, all that we do is just through our staff, and because of the COVID situation, it's obviously quite often you get people and they've had a contact trace, or perhaps they've had a positive test. So we have found that we've had to move staff about the areas, So it's meant, as I say, it's been very disrupted, but it's basically we move our resources just so we can try to maintain that service level across the board. So, but some of our officers have been away working in Alness, but then in return we've had officers from Alness, etc., working, and Inverness working in our area. So obviously the run up to COP26, it's only a sort of fortnight. The actual preparation and training for that and abstraction is heavy, but you know, hopefully that's going to be coming to an end shortly. And I would say, hopefully once things settle down, we can start getting to the back to that normal sort of pattern of contact and involvement with the schools and the community councils. I'm just conscious it has been a disrupted, for want of a better term, sort of pattern of service that we've been providing. But hopefully next year is going to be a bit more back to normal sort of patterns of engagement with the local communities. That's it, really.
Members, have any questions for them? Pippa.
Hi, Vince. Could somebody turn their microphone? Thank you. Hi, Vince. Thanks for making the effort to come in on your day off and sticking at it. I just had a couple of questions. I'm not entirely sure how linked they are. In the second last section on page 6, there's a link to a report on hate crimes with regard to the response from public agencies, which on following it suggests that there's further work for the police to be doing with regard to training and identification. And then also on the final page, there's something with regard to the terrorism and public order, where you're talking about workshops that will be ongoing with regard to education on terrorism, public order. And I just wondered if you could give me any update on those items, please, because they are quite a brief note.
I'll take Muriel first before you answer those. Muriel.
Inspector, thank you for giving us the update. Just, I'd quite like to have a wee update you on the training. You were saying that not all your officers were trained for the drug wipes, and I wondered what percentage that was, because that's quite an important one. We're coming up to the festive period, and I think it's a good public message one as well. I'm just wondering how the 101 was being used in the ward, because I keep referring complaints to people that they must log with 101 so that you as a team know what you're dealing with, particularly with things to regarding drugs and drug use and sharing. But thank you.
Yes, and in terms of the drug wipes, obviously it's a new piece of equipment. And what we did initially was we used to have officers that were trained in basically it was roadside assessments that would be carried out on persons that we thought were under the influence of either drink or drugs. And obviously if we weren't getting a positive reading back from a breath test machine for sort of drink driving, then we had certain officers that were trained to carry out certain roadside tests. It was a wee bit like you would see in America, where somebody would touch the nose and walk a line, and etc. It was all sort of, it was quite involved really. And then we would get back to the station, and effectively then we would consult the doctor, and the doctor would give us permission to take a sample of blood, etc. So those officers that were trained in that, the view we've taken was that we'd then have those officers trained in actually the use of the drug wipe equipment. So so there's a good spread of officers that are trained in those. So quite often what will happen is when you stop a vehicle and you suspect that it's actually drugs that's affecting the driver, the officers will just put out a call out for somebody that's specially trained in the use of the drug wipe equipment. So we can always facilitate that. It just might mean that there's a sort of a road traffic officer perhaps needs to travel down from another area, but we'll always get that facilitated. So really just rolling out the training is ongoing at the moment, but training has been affected just with the just with the COVID situation over the past year or so, it has impacted on sort of the training for quite a few issues. So, some things we can train over Moodle. Otherwise, the Moodle application, I'm not sure. Yeah. So, some things we can do over that. Other things, it's better just to have practically based sort of sessions. So, yeah, we will be continuing to train more officers in that. But at the moment, we've got sufficient on that we can basically just put the call out of the radio, and we'll get somebody to come along and do it. So, yeah.
You're on mute.
There was a couple of questions from Pippa, Vince.
Yes, sorry, I was just getting lost with the mutes. It's quite awkward, isn't it? So no, really, in terms of the training to do with, obviously hate crimes, terrorism, etc., I would say that obviously the training is ongoing. So we have the Moodle applications. Fairly recently, I just refreshed my training myself. So there is ongoing training that the officers. It's one of those things that you have to continue your awareness, I would say, because obviously, it's that sort of certain key things that we're looking for people to look out for. So the training is ongoing. Sometimes it can be Moodle based. Recently, I just, as I say, I refreshed my own training. So, and we monitor. We basically make sure that people are sort of taking part in the training, and if there's lists of those, perhaps of the folk that haven't done it. But I would say that each day that we have an incident, basically the incident is reviewed at a morning meeting. So most things should be picked up at that point, in terms of just how the incident's been dealt with. If there's any additional things we have to consider, because obviously we might need to refer an individual or a situation on to another department or organisation. So these things all should kick in. The vast majority of times they do, but obviously sometimes the situations where perhaps things haven't been picked up, and we do actually just have to go over that sort of situation again. So, but yes, absolutely. I think it's a thing that you have to watch that people's awareness doesn't drop off. Because obviously the potential for, for things to go badly wrong is such that, yes, we just have to make sure that we're constantly vigilant. But, absolutely, we live in the Highlands, but, we can't say that nothing's going to happen here, or that certain individuals aren't going to come into our area as well. So, but no, I think the training is key for that.
John.
Thank you. Good morning, Vince. You seem to, I've probably been watching too many TV documentaries, but you seem to be able to quantify how drunk someone is with the breathalyzer. That's probably quite useful for the case that you're going to perhaps bring against them, possibly. On drugs, do you have the same way of quantifying how much someone is under the influence? Because again, their case will depend on how serious the matter is of them driving.
Yes, so effectively the roadside drug wipe, it's just that tool that we've always kind of haven't previously had, whereby we can move them to arrest if it shows that there is drugs in the system, and then take them back to the station and make a legal requirement that they have to provide a sample of blood or urine. I'd imagine it would actually be blood for a sample to go away and get tested. When that sample then goes away to the lab, I'm pretty sure it's still at Edinburgh. It used to be Edinburgh when I did it myself. And effectively that comes back with a full analysis of what's in the system and at what levels. So yes, it gives a picture similar to what we used to get, the alcohol count, we would call it. So it would give a full picture of just all the drugs involved in the system. So yeah, for that.
Okay, thanks very much.
From a personal point of view, any level is too high. If you're driving a vehicle and you've been taking enhancing drugs, then just don't drive. Simple as that. No excuse, don't drive. Vince, thanks very much for coming in on your day off. Really appreciate it. So we'll let you disappear and get back and put your feet up in front of the fire. So thank you.
No, apologies for the sort of difficulties in getting across, but thank you.
Thanks very much. Cheers. Members, we now have an additional item which was circulated to you. It came in rather late. It's about the Ward Place-Based Investment Fund, and I think Liz is going to take us through this.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we had the opportunity to discuss this with members, and then in accordance with the E&I report, had discussion at the community partnership. So that meant that we were able to put the report forward, albeit a little late, but it is really good to have had that discussion. So with regard to the report, members are aware of the place-based investment funds that were allocated to each ward at Council in March 2021. And members have already made decisions on the ward-specific place-based fund allocation of 100k at this committee. And work is underway as a result of those allocations, specifically on the two priority areas agreed for spend of housing and the economy. Following the Scottish Government award of place-based investment programme funding to the Highland Council and the decision taken at the Economy and Infrastructure Committee that an area-based approach be taken for investment of these funds, the paper before you outlines the proposal to combine the remaining balance from the ward-specific place-based funding with the place-based investment programme funds. This will create a local challenge fund focusing on community regeneration projects, and this fund will be open to all communities across Badenoch and Strathspey. It is intended to open the fund for expressions of interest, and these will be reviewed early in January 2022 by members with a view to then taking proposals for allocation of funds back to this committee. As outlined at 5.1, it should be noticed that projects should consider the four harms of COVID, particularly in relation to recovery. It should be further noted that the place-based investment programme funds are capital in nature, so combining these with the ward place-based investment funds creates an opportunity for both project development and project delivery for the ward communities. And I will be working with the lead officer in the regeneration team, Alan Webster, on the place-based investment programme funding and allocation. Thank you, members. I'm happy to take any questions.
Liz, I think it's quite important that we let communities know in simple words what this is about, how much there is, how they apply, and make it as easy as possible for community organisations to bid into this fund. You know, obviously, it's a reasonable amount of money, but it's not gigantic, so not everyone will be successful. But really, we would like to see some innovative projects coming forward. John.
Thank you, Bill. Yes, Liz, what will be the criteria for granting these funds? Have we set out a criteria for it yet?
Liz.
The criteria is to address the four harms of COVID, and the paper does highlight that regeneration is a key component of that, and it's to look at how communities move forward post the COVID period in bringing community projects to life that will involve the community and give an opportunity for communities to move forward. So there are community hall projects out there, there are community play area projects, there are a number of projects that really would benefit from the opportunity for this funding. Aviemore, there are a couple of projects there as well. So we'll be doing our utmost to get press and publicity out about the fund in response to what our chair has said. I'm working on a press release with Alan Webster for this, but also we will contact community groups and community councils direct, and we'll also work with Voluntary Action Badenoch and Strathspey in getting the message out across the communities, because we're really keen to get these expression of interest in so that we can help and support communities if they need that support to help to realise their project applications. And with the police-based investment programme funding, as is mentioned in the report, this has a 5-year lifespan, so it can enable communities to look forward to projects. So there'll be a lot of work and support, I expect, but it's a really good opportunity for the ward and gives us a sum of £129,222 for the police-based investment programme. So that really will help in terms of capital funding for projects. And we still have around about 50,000 when we complete on our work that's happening already with the police-based investment fund programme. So we have a decent amount, as the chair has said. It's not transformational in some ways, but it does offer a very good opportunity for projects to come forward for the ward.
Muriel.
Thanks.
Thank you for presenting that, Liz. I think I'm delighted to hear that the press release is being worked on. I think it's timely now, and communities are asking questions. And the emphasis, just as you've said there, that this is a 5-year period as well. So I think that might make it easier for communities to be able to get projects in and thinking it's not need to be spent in this financial year or the next financial year. So I look forward to that press release and the communities being informed. Thank you.
I don't think that's 100% correct. I think this tranche of money, the 129, needs to be committed by the end of this financial year. That there are further monies potentially coming forward over the following 4 years. So whilst you may be able to do a project in tranches, you could do phases 1, phases 2, phases 3. You know, this amount of money is not something you could spend in 5 years' time. It needs to be committed, I think, by the end of the financial year. And Liz, you maybe confirm that?
Yes, that is correct, Chair. However, it does give us the opportunity. There is one project that I've already been contacted about with an inquiry, that community being aware that funding will be coming. And as you say, a phased approach can be taken to a community development project. But for this 129,222, it has to be contractually committed by the end of March, hence the need to have the expressions of interest stage opened, any projects coming forward considered by the members, this to go through committee in February, and us to work with groups to have their projects in place by the end of March. But they then have until the end of the following financial year to realise those projects and report back on them. So I hope that provides clarification.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's why we need the professionals to do the communication and not me. So that's what I meant, was that you know, it could have been over. But thank you for the clarity, Liz.
Any other questions, members? No, Liz, thank you. Good stuff. And the communities will want to see this money being spent. So let's go on with it. The recommendations are items 1 and 2, members. Can we agree those, please?
Agreed.
Okay. The last item on your agenda, members, is the minutes of the previous meeting. These are just really for information. They've already been agreed by the council, so no action is required from us. And that gets us to the end of the day, members. Thank you all very much, and thank you to everyone who's attended and helped out today. Thank you.